One second. All right, I think we're on. So, Jeff,
Yep.
you're from Sydney. You're from Australia?
From the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia, but I'm living down in Sydney. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm in California, and this is really interesting. So, do you want to tell people, all three people that are watching, how this came about and what the purpose of this is? Because you start, and then I'll just add because this is not scripted. We're just talking.
Yeah. Okay. So
So how,
this came.
how do we meet, and what is the purpose of this, and why are we talking?
We met because I was following your stuff online, your angry therapist stuff. It's
Okay.
pretty raw, and as a guy, I think it, kind of relate to it a lot more than like the woo-woo stuff out there. Nothing against the woo-woo stuff.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, I kind of like that, and then I went. I guess you could say I sort of walked through some stuff, and I was ready to reboot and get going with a new project, and I wanted someone to have my be in my corner, kind of have my back a bit,
Hmm.
yeah, so I started working with you, and then you thought it'd be a cool idea to review your book 68 because it'd sort of be good for me as a guy, and yeah, it'd just be something interesting, maybe create some conversation, blah blah blah.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and I are we're both passionate about men, and not in that way, but we're roughly the same age, right? You're what's interesting is you're on the other side of the world, and it's Monday for you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's like night Sunday for me. Um, I always trip out with the internet because I still can't fathom that we could have this kind of connection, but such distance, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's very cool, actually. It's really good.
So what we're gonna do is, and this is kind of like, so part of this is actually, I guess, homework, and with me coaching you and trying to help you accomplish your goals, and then part of it is just also my passion with new definitions and all that. So this is a book called 68, and I wrote it I don't know, like a year ago, and it's basically 68 things. Some are funny and some are serious. What I believe are sometimes standards, a guide for men and standards for women. And we're not going to talk about it now because we could. My goal is to kind of hit upon and start a dialogue and kind of nail all 68 plus anything that you have. But the purpose of this video is just to kind of get things rolling and a base of kind of get to know who you are and a little bit of your story. And you don't, I'm totally transparent, but you could share as much or as little as you want, you know?
Okay. So, oh, who am I? Like I'm just a freaking guy like the rest of us. Pretty passionate about some things more than others. Like I like keeping fit, but not necessarily just to look good. I like how it makes you feel, and I think healthy body, healthy mind, blah blah blah. It's always been really important to me. That's probably the first thing that goes. Like if I'm not running well, which is kind of like an interesting gauge that I use for myself. Super motivated, passionate guy, and I like working on things that are inspiring, and I've achieved a lot in my life. But at the same time, I've failed at some things too, and I failed at one thing in particular, which I guess is probably as important as the successes for anyone that knows. If they're like, oh, what would he know, or whatever. It was I used to have an events company in Europe, and our main event was a festival music platform, and I actually had to cancel a show. We were trying to get a new show off the ground in France, and I had to cancel that, and took a huge hit. Lost, like prior to that, we had a house in France and had a house in Australia, and my wife and I were co-directors. We're still married, but we're separated at the moment. Trying to get that back on track because it, sort of shook us, but. Yeah,
Would
so
you say you're going through kind of like a rebirth? You're going through rebuilding yourself and what you're passionate about, and
yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. So, you know, I think that's unfortunate for us humans. This is where a lot of the learning happens, is when you go through, you know, when shit happens, to like coin that well-used phrase. But yeah, I went through some crap. I did all, you know, I did a lot of things wrong. You know, I kind of did all the, you know, all the wrong things as far as like looking after myself goes. And you know, I'm still here, and my heart's still beating, and I looked around, and okay, so that was in Europe. I guess this is kind of pretty important as well for me personally. This all sort of happened in Europe. I built a life in Europe, you know, with my wife, who's like half French and half English from this little island called Jersey, and the original Jersey, and so then I came back to Australia, you know, licking my wounds, I guess, you know, like to rebuild, and at the start it was just, you know, about, you know, getting money again and earning money again, and then because I was back in Australia and I was kind of, you know, getting my things wrong, I was also looking around and realised, you know, Aussie guys, I'd been out of Australia for, you know, 8 years, and there was a lot of stuff going on that was quite scary, like suicide. The suicide rate for Australian males had gone, you know, it's super high right now, especially for guys, you know, sort of like mid-30s to mid-40s now. And, you know, prescription meds, I'm not saying that anyone, you know, shouldn't necessarily be on some sort of medication if they have to be, but, you know, like, I've even just me personally, I've spoken to at least, you know, well over 100 guys, because when I first got back to Australia, I got a job in the mining industry,
right?
Because it was like a boom at the time in the mining, and it's, you know, everything's six-figure plus, and it's, you know, going to change your life and blah blah blah. But anyway, so
no, but you know, actually, real quick, this is the interesting stuff. This is why I wanted to do this with you, because you have such an interesting story, but also some of the themes that we're going to talk about, and you just being like a guy's guy, I think a lot of men can relate to.
Right.
I also agree with, as far as like the pills go, I think the psychiatrist is today's new drug dealer, and I think that man, that stuff is really, I see in my clients. I think it can be extremely dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I've got, you know, some, you know, like a bunch of friends from the mining industry, you know, because the mining industry, they're quite strict with drug testing and stuff, but that stuff doesn't show up, so they don't, like, you know, they won't, you know, they won't even go talk to someone, but they'll take, you know, they'll take anti-anxiety meds from the doctor when they write the prescription, but they'll be like, oh, fuck that, man, I'm not talking to a shrink, you know what I mean, or I'm not talking to even your mate, you know, because there's a, you know, in Australia, like, we're supposed to, you know, it's all just like, she'll be right, mate, you know, and it's good, like, us Australians, like, we're really good at having each other's back, and we're good at cracking, you know, almost joking our way out of situations, you know, like, but it doesn't seem to be washing anymore, from my perspective at least, with like the way the modern world is and these new pressures, like, you know, something's changed, I don't know, but it doesn't seem to be cutting it anymore, and it's, you know, I've got a lot of good friends that, you know, walk through, you know, wives with breast cancer or serious relationships, or, and you know, me, like losing a business that I worked, you know, gave my life to. You know, I was a workaholic really for 6 years, and then, you know, all of a sudden I didn't have that identity anymore, and you know, and you could any of me and my buddies and, you know, guys that I was mining with and stuff, you could, like, I could talk about what happened and how it happened and stuff all day, but if you wanted to talk to me about how I felt about it, and like how I'm like walking around inside, like just feeling like I've been ripped in half, like, I wouldn't, like, you were never going to get that out of me, you know. And
well, exactly, and hopefully I'm going to get that out of you during our series. But that's the whole point. Is you know, you surf, you work out, you're like a man's man. You know, you're doing the mining thing. I also am a kind of a man's man in the sense, although I'm a therapist. Yeah, I like CrossFit, I like motorcycles, I like, you know, all that stuff. But for us to have a conversation about things like feelings and about new definitions of man and stuff like that, I think is really interesting. And I think that's what I think is well, that's what my goal is in this for the next few weeks, is to have these conversations?
Yeah. Well, that's I kind of my father, like, he took his own life. He shot himself in a park by himself. So I already related to that. Guy being stuck in his own head thing, and then I guess I just cracked on with my own life. Went to Europe for 8 years, came back stuck in my own head. Like, thankfully, like, I never thought anything like that, but fuck, I was pretty freaking low for a while, and at the same time, I was just looking around all these awesome freaking Aussie guys that I love, like these mates that I'd step in front of buses for, like brothers, and shit was going down. Like, we're all not 22 anymore, we're all older, like real life stuff was happening, and we freaking weren't talking about it. We went on a surf trip to Indonesia, like a couple of us, and that was the first time, like, my buddy was like, he was being sued by this massive company in Asia, and he was one more bank draft from having to close the company and lose his house to pay the lawyers, and because they were trying to. He was a competitor. They basically wanted him. They were trying to keep him in court until the company closed, and I just lost like 600,000 euros, most of it ours, and me and my wife's, and some of it investors, with lots of unhappy people, and we weren't, like, it took us to be in the middle of freaking nowhere in Indonesia, like in this remote part of the country where no one's around. With me, everyone else had gone to bed, and it's just me and him sitting up having a few beers, and then we talk about it. That was the most, and both of us at the end were like, why weren't we doing this at home when we were like, could have called around and saw each other once, like once every couple of weeks, and just had a barbecue and probably helped each other through that, and make better decisions, and we're just like, I don't want to talk about it, like, but once it started, it was awesome, and that's kind of from that little thing, personal experience, and looking around and knowing that all these guys are on anxiety medication, and using 6 beers every night as medication, and using all this other stuff, it pissed me off, like, and I was like, this is bullshit. It's not how, like, it's not working anymore, like, something's got to change. Like, we've got to, like, redefine this freaking alpha male shit. Like, I'm not saying we get all fucking woo-woo and cry on each other's shoulders and shit like that, but we've got to get real, like.
I agree, and I think that's the key, is getting real, is in getting authentic and expressing yourself, and embracing your story. So, what's funny? What we have in common is that, speaking of alcohol, that we're both lightweights. Like, eat like half a beer, and I'm borderline alcohol poisoning, and I turn bright red, and I can't handle alcohol. And I know that also you can't drink a lot of beer, right?
Yeah, beer kills. I've got, my stomach produces too much acid, like, so it's constantly, the lining of my stomach's always really raw. So
why don't we start there? Two men. You're what are you? 30 what? 37?
37. Yeah.
You're 37. I'm 41, and we're both announcing to everyone that although we are men, we have a very low tolerance for alcohol. We could only drink 1 beer and we're gone, sloshed. And we're okay with that.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I'm a lightweight. Everyone knows I'm a lightweight. I'm pretty good at drinking rum and coke, though. I do like a good, like, Havana Club. There's a 7-year-old one that's pretty freaking awesome.
Right.
And in Australia, make a really good one. It's a kind of Yobbo rum. It's called Bundaberg rum. It's like a redneck rum, but I freaking love it. Like, I think I've got a bit of redneck in me. I'm cool with it. But yeah, other than that, that's pretty much me. Like, yeah, I get hungover pretty easy. So I'm happy to declare that.
So my passion for this whole thing with men started. So I worked in nonprofit for 4 years, working with teenagers, and I realized that the common thread between hundreds of teenagers dealing with addiction was the absent father. So either dad was not around physically, or dad was emotionally absent. And so what that led to were teenage girls standing too close to me, and teenage boys mimicking me, and they were so thirsty for a positive male role model. And I realized that basically we live in a fatherless nation. And since we do, there's a lot of confusion for men growing up on, on their definitions. So that's why I'm passionate. That's why I wrote this, and that's why I'm passionate about having conversations with men like you that want to have an honest dialogue. I think it's important. It's my way of making some kind of dent in this world, you know, throwing
No,
myself.
and I think that's freaking awesome, and that's why I'm sat here, man, because like that's kind of what I want to do with my life now. Is like, yeah, if I can try and, I mean, you know, nothing against the rest of the world, but like the problem I saw is kind of like an Aussie male thing. I know it's like across the board, but if I can make a dent, you know, one little guy can make a bit of a dent here in Australia, like, I'll be stoked. But that's,
Yeah.
yeah, I think what you want to do is freaking awesome, you know. And the cool thing is, like, you're already doing it. Like, it's good. It's
Thanks,
really
man. I
good.
appreciate that. And I took in your passion right away, and so I want to use the internet and whatever platform that I have, and plus whatever you're building. And so let's create a dialogue. So for the next, for me it'll be Sunday. For you it'll be Monday. For
Yeah.
the next few weeks, we'll take about half an hour, and we'll go through some of these definitions and maybe create our own. And I don't know, maybe have a beer doing it, and just shoot from the hip, and it's going to be unrehearsed. And if you want to bring in questions, whatever you want to do, or if you're watching this and you have questions for a 41-year-old Korean male or a 37-year-old, how do I describe you? Can I say Aussie? I don't know. I don't know what the correct term is.
Yeah, I'm just your typical, you know, like 6'1", like, you know, just I'm like your normal average freaking guy, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
You know what I do envy is I love your accent, and it's so unfair being Asian, because Asian accents
it's not unfair.
it's the
Sorry.
only accent that is not sexy. You know, like any other race, the whether you're Italian or wherever you're from, your accents are really sexy, but like Asian accents just don't. It just doesn't translate to sexy.
Wow, I don't think anyone would describe the Aussie accent as. I usually get like I sound like a farmer or something.
No, I think it's cool. I think it's cool. All right, so we're planting this seed now, and we'll start next Sunday and
Cool.
get the dialogue going.
No, I'm looking forward to it, man. It's gonna be sick. It's gonna be good.
Awesome, Jeff. All right, man. I'll talk to you next week. And if anyone's watching, I'll be posting this on my blog, and you could catch it live on my Google page.
Cool.
All right,
Thanks.
Jeff. Talk to you soon.
Bye.